Hey, welcome back to Sailing Stormdancer. All is not as it seems in episode 14. We were under a lot of pressure. The tractor guy that we had arranged to come down to lift out the BMC engine, he couldn't make it before Chris was due to fly back home. And in our infinite wisdom, or lack thereof, we decided we would come up with a way to manhandle it out of there. Using the traditional methods better known as a penknife and a ball of string. And so, the saga ensued. Quite a shock at the end of the video, by the way, when you see exactly how much of a difference the weight of that engine actually made to the waterline of the boat. Anyway, let's get into it. It all began quite civilized. We were preparing to take the BMC engine out and removing things like the throttle controls and the shifter for the Z leg and so on and so forth.
Yeah, not so.
Okay.
Point cameras already recording.
Uh-huh. Yes, you got it. And it's the... Yep, that's right. That's you. You off?
Which in turn brought us to that awkward moment that everyone working on a boat encounters. Is it scrap? Is it worth keeping? Is it reusable? And you can't bring yourself to just throw it out. That just doesn't sit right. So with a bit of a hook and a poke and a prod around within the gubbins of the thing, we've sort of decided that, yeah, it's gonna get shelf space. Why? I do not know, and I don't believe any of you will ever know either. But it is one of those items that, well, when you're looking for one, you'd rather be looking at it than for it. Naturally, as you would expect, we're only interested in getting everything disconnected and removed, not standing arguing with things that have rusted solid. The whole plan is to get everything disconnected, ready, and looking forward to the tractor.
Can I do my thing?
What?
So the guy with the tractor, he called you and said he didn't come tomorrow.
Now you guys don't really think for a second that anything around boats is that easy.
The guy with the tractor not make it. Oh. Sugar. Okay. So that's the cowboy showing things a little bit. Because if I'm going away and he isn't coming down, engine ain't coming out.
Well, the engine needs to come out.
I have a thought. Happy with it. Oh no. Oh no.
Gerber.
Okay. So
Rubber will not be enough on its own.
might need something else. But a string or something.
String.
Wrap a bit of string through the eyelets on the top of the engine. Let's do this and Gerber it.
It's the part the civilized don't ever get to encounter.
Gerber mentality.
Right.
What's really going through a man's head at this point is understanding there's going to be contraptions that want to take limbs off.
The thing.
We need to throw the engine off the back of the boat, basically. So we need a thing. We need something. Yeah. We can lift it up, move it along, lift it up, move it along, keep it up the end. Or refine that to something a little more polite.
So we need to defy gravity.
Well, that's the easy part.
Best thing with some kind of a gantry.
Right.
So we need to find or fashion a gantry.
What if we put some, yeah, exactly what you say, a frame over the engine, lift it up, shove it back a bit, move the gantry, lift it up, shove it back a bit, and then kick it off the end.
We need a frame. Lift it, walk it back, lift it, walk it back.
Right.
Ramp, plank. Get it
Plank.
with the plank, seesaw.
Plank on the end, slide it down the plank.
Leverage, tip.
Kids' playground, slide, whee!
At which point the gantry will fall.
Yes. As long as it falls away and not towards.
Well, if we know it's going
Does
to
it matter? If you know it's going to fall, it's not matter. As long as you know where it's going to fall.
there's got to be something around here that we can do.
And that's how it happens, with every opportunity for either one of us to talk sense, and then we have a look round.
Swing seat.
Holy moly. That's a gantry.
It's also rusty and too light. What?
Well, it's got the makings of a gantry. Just try it and see. And if it starts collapsing, then put something across it. But I ain't got it collapsing.
Full collapse.
It's for swinging
It's
people,
fun.
not engines. With extra strength across that centre bar, that's going to lift the engine. It has to. There's no way it won't.
So lift the engine, walk it back, lift the gantry back.
Yes. Lift it, slide it back, move the gantry, lift it,
What
slide it
use-
back.
What if we use a plank that goes right out the back? Then we have leverage. So when the engines move to the plank between the transom brace bar and the cradle,
That might work.
we can actually go to the back,
Yeah.
press the plank down, and angle the
Yes,
engine,
and then
it should start
it
to
would
slide.
start to slide down at that point.
Which means
That means somebody has to be off the back end.
But it also means it's trying to pull the gantry over.
Yeah. And that's when it's going to fail. But at that stage, it'll be on the slide, so it'll just slide.
You can also lash that side of the gantry down in the existing cradle. Because if it's trying to shift that way, being tangled up towards the
And such has been the way of things between Chris and I for the last quarter of a century. Those situations where we've found ourselves in the impossible circumstance, with little to work with, knowing that anything we touch is going to try and remove a limb or cause bloodshed or do damage. After a while, you get used to that and start factoring in for, well, if it's going to fail, it's when is it going to fail? How is it going to fail? And can we manage to make it fail at the right time rather than the wrong time? And so the pantomime begins. This little swing seat frame, completely underrated for what we're trying to do here, but knowing that if we brace it with a couple of scaffolding poles, it can't possibly collapse inwardly. And then the pantomime of using a chain block, and they just don't work effectively unless they've got height. The moment they're at an angle, chaos. Not to mention that, well, the chain is already rusted on that one, so we weren't worried about it falling down into the mud. So cleanliness didn't quite come into the equation in this either. Now, you would be forgiven for thinking this is crazy, but in reality, we are making a point of not intentionally doing anything here other than having a look to see how movable the engine is. At no point are we trying to enforce our will on this against the gods of engineering. Once we get it to the plank, we know the plank wants to topple and fall like a seesaw. And we also know that this gantry right at the back of the boat, the slightest tug or pull on the end of it is going to make it topple off the back. Now, even you as a viewer, sitting watching this, you can predict exactly what's going to happen. However, in the way that we're going about this, we know the engine's going to slide on the plank, and we know the gantry is going to topple, and we've allowed for it. Which is why that Chris, in his infinite wisdom here, with his Mechanical Sympathy Award, or lack thereof, is currently swinging on the end of that engine, trying to encourage it to get on with the falling on the plank and seesawing down into the little green boat. And naturally, at that point, the gantry's going to give way and come with him. But not by much. Watch. And there it is. The engine's already down the plank and into the green boat. The gantry has now come off the end, having served its purpose. And that has landed us with the insurmountable problem. How do we now get the BMC engine from the little green boat up to the trailer? On the other hand, we now have a BMC engine that's no longer on the boat and absolutely no harm done to anything, so that's a mission accomplished. Meanwhile, off we go to pick up the 25 horsepower, extra long leg Suzuki. Now this engine is something of a unicorn.
I'm looking at you. And the extra long shaft.
Yep.
It's a monster.
We're doing the big. That's it.
That's the one.
I couldn't actually be happier with it. Extra long leg, 1999 engine, low R's, and it had spent its entire time in freshwater lakes. It's an electric start, and it also has the charging output for the batteries as well. Now, the reason that the extra long leg is perfect for Stormdancer is that the original transom location was designed for a long leg, or a long shaft, depending on what part of the world you're in. But it was still capable of rising in a trough between the two hulls, whereas the little bit extra that's in the extra long shaft means the cavitation plate will be sitting that little bit lower and closer to the bill's keels. And the advantage that that will give me is immense. Now that, in combination with how small a footprint the two hulls actually make in the water, the 25 horse Suzuki SD is a triple, a 3-cylinder engine. And naturally, Chris couldn't leave it alone. Chris being a former bike mechanic, there is no way that that engine was going to be sitting there, flushed out, and put straight on the Stormdancer without Chris having the carbs apart. And when I say no way, well, we would have needed a therapist if we prevented him from having a hoke and a poke. So, left him to it. Chris pulls the engine apart, pulls the carbs apart, dismantles it all the way down to the bowls, hoke and a poke around, and sure enough, predictably, there is the green mould from ethanol that has been in there where the engines have been sitting for the last couple of years. Admittedly, this little sequence is quite long, but one of the reasons I've decided to share it is to let you guys who are afraid of your outboards get a bit of an idea of what's involved. The whole carburetor block, well, there's the bowls for a start, and I think Chris turns it around and you can see the green mould that's down around the grain plug on that. Yep, there you go. And all of that needs flushed out. You really do not want to be going to sea with any of that hovering around inside of your fuel chambers. But the engine itself, especially of that era, is designed to be able to be dismantled very, very easily, fully serviced, reassembled and put back together. Now, there are also anodes within the water jacket that I'll get round to doing myself, but they're not a priority at the moment because the engine is pumping and flushing well. But this whole section that you're seeing now of how straightforward it actually is to dismantle the carburetors and get them down to their bowls and give everything a good, thorough cleaning out. It's not something that anybody who's capable of using their hands should really be afraid of. It is fairly straightforward stuff. And that is one of the beauties of why, in particular, I wanted what many would see as being an overpowered engine on Stormdancer. I'm not saying that 25 horse really is overpowered. And yes, and I would be the first to concede that a modern 9.9 high thrust Yamaha would actually be ideal. However, to be able to get a 3-cylinder 2-stroke with electric start and a charging circuit at sensible money, in great condition, and of an era when engines were built to last, this one in particular is so easily serviced on a bad day, even offshore if necessary, that it's exactly what I had in mind for the kind of boating that I'm planning on doing. All of it is straightforward. I mean, the 2-stroke carburetor system is basically working on the Venturi effect, and there's not a lot that go wrong. It comes apart in big chunky bits, and it goes back together equally in big chunky bits, and perhaps some of you who are watching this will get to appreciate that it's not that tricky. And I'm well aware that it's open to debate about the size of an engine for the cat. However, Strangford Lough does have a tidal race that at times can reach up as far as 7 or 8 knots. I would prefer to have the 25 horsepower that's a very punchy engine. And the prop that is traditionally fitted to this engine is a 310-13. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with what those numbers actually mean, they're not that tricky. The 3 is how many blades, the 10 is the diameter, and the 13, therefore, is the pitch of the prop itself. And in the most simplistic way of understanding that is one revolution of the prop would drive that prop forward by 13 inches. The 25 horse in particular here, when used on speedboats, would have been fitted with a 310-19. So it is actually fairly low ratio with the 13 prop that's on it. You can, therefore, consider it to be my personal preference to have a 3-cylinder 25 horsepower running at tickover or quarter throttle with plenty to spare on a 13 prop, rather than to be screaming a couple of lightweight Tohatsu 9.9s or even the Yamaha 9.9 4-stroke high thrust. This 25 lends itself to that moment where if I'm in the tidal race and I need the extra oomph, knowing that I don't have daggerboards, knowing that I have bilge keels, knowing that I have very, very little footprint in the water overall, this engine is capable, more capable than I need it to be. But more importantly, while it is running, it is also putting charge to the batteries, and for me, that is a vital, if not a critical factor. Then as we were reassembling everything to go back together, we discovered that as well as having the remote choke, there is a manual choke that was within the housing, but it had never been put back through the housing on whatever last occasion that the cars were serviced. Now,
Where's your phone?
I could get strung up for this one. Much as Chris is one of the most respected engineers that I've ever worked with, when it comes to boats, he's a novice. And I did explain to him that when he was stepping off, to never stand with one foot in the painter while one on the deck. It's just that being around boats thing. You know this or you don't. If anybody explains it to you, you still will not listen. So here's a quick share of Chris's education as to why when you step off into a painter, you do it in one fluid motion.
There's wisdom in climbing back on board, tipping.
Well, I would say that is Chris well and truly earning his stripes on his sea legs. But it's a strange thing. No matter how many times you tell anybody who's used to being on land that you cannot trust your normal responses, that you literally have to step off one onto the other, it doesn't sink in. Until you've done it, until you've been there, until you've been soggy. And if ever you needed a visual on why I wasn't going very far with Stormdancer until I had that BMC removed, you can see it now in the waterline. She's sitting 4 inches higher at the back. In fact, this is the first opportunity to be able to see her now from the back, and I've just cut a piece of hardwood to go in. It's going 6 inches lower than where it is there for the transom. And this is where I'm wrapping the episode up. The next one, you will see her with the 25 horsepower in there and running, and the whole back end cleaned, varnished and dealt with. Until next time, folks, believe in the magic of your dreams.